Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night. So, we don't have a ton of time because it's currently halftime of the College Football National Championship, a 38-7 blowout, Georgia over TCU. But because this was such a substantial move today, the Titans fired Todd Downing along with three other staffers, giving so many Titans fans what they have desired at this point. So as we talk about this, you're going to hear from Mike Vrabel on it, and we're going to talk about what this signifies now for the Tennessee Titans. They informed offensive coordinator Todd Downing, offensive line coach Keith Carter, secondary coach Anthony Midget, and offensive skill assistant Eric Frazier that they would not be retained. And there's a statement from Mike Vrabel alongside that. So we'll talk about that. We'll get into some Black Monday firings, and producer Reed has a particularly unique video picked out for our end of show topic. Before we get started, though, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. If you are hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. Bottom right-hand corner of your screen is where you do that. If you are on Facebook Live, like Roy DeMeo or Caleb Hubman, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or Twitch like Stephen King or Dom Odell, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so already, we would appreciate that here on A to Z Sports Prime Time. So let's go ahead and start this. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Superbook Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I am proud, as always, to be presented to you by our friends at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is where you go for 2023 model year Fords. They are the best in the business in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Superbook Sports, where you go to wager on the national championship game, the last game of the year in college football, the NFL playoffs, NHL, NBA, and everything in between. Download the Superbook Sports app today and get started. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com. Your dream address without the stress. Don't sell without the intel that the Ashton team can provide to you. And TrueMav Fitness, a new way to work out, the best way to get your 2023 New Year's resolutions accomplished. TrueMavFitness.com for your first workout as a Middle Tennessee resident free. So the Titans fired Todd Downing today. And I'll be honest, in all of the different conversations that I had with people that I trust about this, did not seem like this move was something that was anticipated necessarily today. Now, that doesn't mean that things can't change over the course of time. And I didn't necessarily think it was a guarantee that he was going to get fired in the first place. But obviously, Mike Vrabel, when he spoke to the media, had not yet talked to the coaching staff. And by 4 o'clock Central Time, he had made the decision to move on from Downing and those three other assistants that I mentioned. So let's start with your Two Rivers Ford take. What was your reaction to the Titans firing Todd Downing? Give me your response. You're going to hear from Mike Vrabel here in just a second. It is the Two Rivers Ford take that we do each and every night. It's made possible by Two Rivers Ford, where you go for 2023 model year Fords. Two Rivers will always get you right, no matter how you like to shop. They are right there for you to make sure that you have a fast, easy, and fun car buying experience. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So, what was your reaction to seeing Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing get fired? Good decision, says Jamie Helly. Amazingly happy, says somebody else on Facebook Live. Ron Crowder says about time. Exhilarated, according to Amanda C. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I understand a lot of angst has been had about this particular situation. I do think that Todd Downing was dealing with, here's what I know about Todd Downing. Todd Downing was very, very well liked in that building. But obviously, the standard being Arthur Smith, it was going to be a hard bar to kind of meet. Now, I think he's fine, right? And I was texting some people in the NFL about this today. I texted somebody who I trust in the league for an assessment of what I may be missing about Todd Downing. And what I got back is he's okay, average to me, good red zone play caller, some creative stuff with the tight ends. Really hard to call an offense with your offensive line, talking about the Titans offensive line. And I think that's a fair assessment of what he's fine. He's just fine, but they're looking for better options. And I think a lot of people, the issues that they had offensively compounded by the lack of talent that they ended up, kind of falling because of. This was Mike Vrabel at about 11:30 a.m. today talking about any potential staff changes.
Mike, you bringing Todd back as the offensive coordinator?
Our offensive coordinator, Todd, that'll be part of the conversation. That'll be part of my evaluation, this week as it relates to the football team.
Any changes been made yet, Mike, on the coaching staff?
No, not yet. Just still, working through conversations with the players and having some meetings. And, I'll meet with the coaches and, continue that process.
So what do you think Mike Vrabel's tell was? Because obviously at that point, even if you haven't made the decision, you haven't talked to those coaches, you've made your assessment. You're not walking into those meetings later this afternoon blind. Now, I misunderstood him. I thought that he said that was going to continue throughout the course of the week, which may mean that more change is coming. But, to start with the offensive coordinator situation, here's where the Titans finished this season as far as their varying statistical ranks, because this is obviously a fair amount of underachieving. They are 30th offensively, 13th as a rushing offense, 30th as a passing offense. They are 31st on third downs, 28th in points, 26th in EPA, and 21st in DVOA. So they're a largely ineffective offense. Now, on the other side of things, defense did underachieve as well. 32nd passing defense. They were good on third downs. They were third best, 21st, though, in total defense, and 22nd in EPA. It was not an overwhelmingly good year for the defense, even though the defense did have more moments than the offense did. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by the fine folks at Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is where you go to wager on every major sport. College football tonight was the last night to do so. Still can get in some second half bets on this Georgia TCU game, though it looks to be a bit of a blowout right now. No matter what you're into, Superbook Sports will allow you to take the fight to the best odds makers on the strip. So download the Superbook app today. Go to superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So Todd Downing out. And Juan Gomez says the message that it sends is that Vrabel isn't settling for being mediocre. They are far below mediocre at this stage, but I think that's as much about the talent of the roster as it is about the play caller. I think that, again, I do maintain that Todd Downing is just okay. I don't think he's the worst offensive coordinator in the history of football, like many of you do. I think that Ravens fans have a lot of the same conversations around Greg Roman. I know that Steelers fans and Matt Canada have about as toxic a relationship as any coach and fan base in professional football at this point. But Downing getting fired does signify that they are cognizant of at least part of the issues being on the lack of, situational awareness, I think, is a big issue. And that's something that's difficult to quantify, but it just seems like some of the worst moments they had happened in some of the biggest spots. And I think for Downing, that I think magnified a lot of the problems that he had. Ronnie Sneed said, no, Buck, he sucked as an offensive coordinator too in Oakland, but I don't think he sucked here. I objectively don't think he sucked here. I think you have to separate those two stints. Those are two very, very different teams, two different franchises in two different places. I don't think that Todd Downing here was horrible. I just think that all of the problems that they had compounded with the fact that he's not an overwhelmingly situationally great coach and doesn't appear to be overwhelmingly creative. They're running the same offense basically that Arthur Smith was. It's just they're doing it without the same players. They're doing it without Taylor Lewan. They're doing it without A.J. Brown, and it looks much, much worse throughout the course of a game. Major Keys says, excited for the changes moving forward. I see us cutting loose an unexpected player, though. Also excited to see how this draft and free agency plays out. Yeah, basically everybody but Vrabel, I would consider everybody but Vrabel and No, maybe just everybody but Vrabel, I would think are kind of fair game at this stage. And I think that there's a lot of different reasons why it's going to go down this way. But we will have plenty more time to talk about an offensive coordinator search, and that is going to be something that a considerable amount of the conversation is had around the Tennessee Titans coaching staff moving forward. Keith Carter gone too, says Jeff Sawyer. Our problem started with a very sorry offensive line. But again, is that about Keith? Like, I found the Keith Carter thing interesting, unless it's as much about a philosophical approach as it is about the players, because there's no question Keith Carter had bad players to work with. Like, you can't flip the script on its head and turn automatically to Keith Carter should be blamed for Dennis Daly. That's not a fair assessment, right? Keith Carter can be blamed for them starting Aaron Brewer, a 275-pound guard. I just think that the Carter thing is more to me about, okay, what do you want to be moving forward? What do you want coached out of your offensive line? And what might that look like in the next iteration of whatever Titans football is? Because right now, Titans football is Derrick Henry. But I think that Derrick Henry should not dictate as much of their offense as he truly does. Aaron Kim says, but what was he doing to grow better offensive linemen? You mean to develop? Grow sounds like you're making them in a laboratory. I mean, I think there were moments when the Titans offensive line was like a good unit. I think they played well. Really, they haven't been good since the first 5 games of 2020. They were great in 2020 to start the season, and then Lawan tore his ACL and everything went to shit. And since then, they've got progressively worse. So I think, Keith Carter, if you need a head to roll, I guess that one makes sense, but it was just an interesting one for me to see. Question I'm asking next is, it is Black Monday in the NFL. What was the most surprising? Who was the most surprising firing on the NFL's Black Monday, the day when the organizations who are in the market for a coaching change make their biggest moves? Let's talk about it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. What was the most surprising firing on the NFL's Black Monday? We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that A to Z Sports Prime Time is made possible by TrueMav Fitness. TrueMav Fitness is where you go to accomplish your workout goals. They will get you on track for your New Year's resolutions. They will help you achieve at the highest level. TrueMavFitness.com for your first workout free. And no matter how you like to work out, no workout is ever recycled or repeated. So you continue to challenge yourself, you continue to develop your fitness goals, and you continue to progress on your fitness goals, whether it's personal training, their group classes, or the open gym concept that they offer. TrueMavFitness.com is how you find out how you can get a new way to work out started. So, most surprising NFL firing at this point. And we want to get you back in time for the second half. I don't think TCU is going to make much of a comeback at this point, but just in case. None, says MB. He wasn't surprised with any of them. Wasn't it Kingsbury? Just Kingsbury and Smith? Yes, it was just those two. I mean, there were some coordinators. Fired the Browns, fired their defensive coordinator. Obviously, you have Todd Downing getting fired today. I don't think that was necessarily a surprise, but I did think that the Lovie Smith one was kind of, I mean, it's obviously the worst, but it's pretty crazy.
It was a big win yesterday for the Houston Texans, then a big loss last night for Lovie Smith, officially fired. Flew home, landed in Houston, drove straight to the office, heard the news from owner Kyle McNair and general manager Nick Caserio. A one and done in Houston for the second year in a row. It was David Culley last year. It was Lovie Smith this year. And just a lot of frustration overall with the building of the team. Obviously, the record was what it was. Inconsistent quarterback play, a lot of young players on the roster, but just not enough progress, I would say, for Lovie Smith. So he is now out. Nick Caserio going to run the search, and two top candidates I would keep an eye on: Jonathan Gannon from the Eagles, D'Amico Ryans from the San Francisco 49ers. Meanwhile,
So that is Ian Rappaport talking about the firing of Lovie Smith. So now the Texans go one and done with David Culley. They go one and done with Lovie Smith, who they really never gave a chance to. They screwed around in their hiring practice. They were criticized, pretty harshly for the way that they handled things, and they ultimately just ended up with the guy who was already on their staff as a defensive coordinator in Lovie Smith. So I think that Lovie the way that the Texans did it, it's not surprising because they're one of the most directionless franchises in all of professional sports. But Lovie Smith getting done that way, the same way that David Culley did, really, really unfortunate to see. A to Z Sports Primetime made possible by Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress. The Ashton team will put you in a position to succeed with that Intel edge that only they can provide. The Intel helps you sell your home without any showings or staging, helps you win your or find your next home in this red-hot Nashville real estate market and cash in on your home equity right now. GaryAshton.com for the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators and of A to Z Sports Primetime. So Tony Dungy, I thought, made a really good point on this earlier. I guess this would have been last night. He says on Twitter, what are the Texans doing? What kind of operation is this where you don't have any convictions about supporting the coaches you hire? Who is going to want to coach there if you might only get 1 year to implement your plans? 2 years in a row is ridiculous. I think that as far as I think Tony, hits it on the head. They've just mismanaged this thing up and down. And now again, they have a high draft pick, but they don't have the top draft pick. They need a quarterback, and Chicago doesn't necessarily. But I think that a lot of the problems that the Texans are having go so far beyond the situation that ultimately resulted for Lovie Smith. And I think at this point, you have to take all of that with a grain of salt and just say, well, yeah, they just clearly, again, don't know what they're doing. And that franchise is going to continue to be mired in mediocrity. So we're going to get you back in time for the second half of the national championship game. It's a blowout. We are rooting for the Frogs around here, and we will see what happens in the second half of this game. Georgia rolling right now, 38-7. Have a great rest of your night, and we will do 3 hours basically on Todd Downing tomorrow, what it means for the direction of the franchise and everything else at this point. In the meantime, enjoy the game, and I will talk to you tomorrow on the radio at 10, and if not, 8 p.m. on A to Z Sports Primetime.